Hello, friends. It's time for another program assessment. So today we have one LB from Minnesota. So let's go through the intake and see what he says here. What are your training goals for this program? Muscle building. That is, I reckon, the most popular one we're going to get, right? If you guys have a fat loss one, send me some fat loss ones too. It'd be nice to see some of that or sport specific stuff as well. This is a sample block that LB wrote for a client who's been with me for a minute. Only 1 minute. We'll see if it's how advanced it is then. Their long-term goals are to put on muscle all over before any type of body part specialization. That's good. I think that's really important as well. It's really common nowadays to go straight to a body part specialization program. But the problem is that I see, and even like programs that have really technical exercises and a lot of moving parts and a lot of setup and all that, while these are good, I fully believe that those types of movements should go towards the end of training. Now, the way I look at building a nice rig, a nice physique, I look at it a lot like how a sculptor would make a nice clay model, or somebody sculpting something out of like a piece of granite. So in order to, let's say you want to build a granite sculpture, you would need a big fucking rock. So we don't take small rocks and glue them onto each other. We take a big piece of granite. Where do you get that? You get it from a granite quarry. So they use dynamite and they blow it out, they mine it out, they use big trucks and they haul it off. So then the sculptor buys that, and the first thing they do is they pull out a big chisel and a big hammer and they start knocking off pieces. As they get the general shape, they use smaller chisels and they use smaller hammers until they go down to the fine detail work. So when we go into things like body part specializations or using highly technical movements, that is more like using a small chisel and a smaller hammer. What people need to do the first few years when they're trying to build a physique is they need to use dynamite and they need to go to the quarry. So that means using something with like big boy, big girl movements, like big compound movements, things that you can load with a lot of tension, a lot of weight, and you just wash, rinse, repeat that for a long time. If you just use big movements, get stronger in whatever rep range you're looking for, be consistent, get your lifestyle stuff in order like your sleep, get your food in order like eating enough to grow, and over a few years you'll get really big and really strong. Nothing has changed about that concept in the last 100 years, 200 years, however long. We still build muscle the same way. So it's a shampoo analogy: wash, rinse, repeat, be patient, be consistent. And then as you get more mature with your muscle development and your training age goes up, then you start sprinkling in some smaller, more specific accessory stuff that's a bit more maybe technical as far as the setup and body position and leveraging mechanics and things like that. And do that when you need the small detail work. Because realistically too, if you're relatively untrained, the big stuff is going to get you there really quickly. And you may have lagging body parts simply because you're just untrained. The minute somebody starts to train, they start to use big stuff, then those body parts may not actually be a problem anymore. But we don't know until we spend a few years actually building somebody up. So I like that. And once you get there, then it's like, okay, you get in a couple of years, 2.5, 3 years in, you've built a nice, big, rugged physique, like that 1970s powerlifter physique. Then as you cut down and you can see where you need to add stuff on, that's when you can start adding more clay to the sculpture, okay? How long have you been with this solid training? More than 5 years. Only recently began sending it out to others, mainly bodybuilding with some powerlifting. That is the training history. Clients have no injuries thus far, no health issues. Focus on bodybuilding and getting competitors and non-competitors bigger and stronger overall. Clients enjoy the challenge. If there's anything that needs to be adjusted, I tell them to reach out even before the check-ins, right? That's good. They follow it to a T, at least what they tell me. And that's the biggest thing, especially with online training. You can give somebody the best program, but it has to be followed correctly, or it's now the worst program they could possibly be doing. But that is from, if you're an online coach, that is kind of your problem, but it's kind of not. So it's your job to coach. It's your job to orchestrate everything. It's their job to actually apply it. And that's where online training can be very difficult because there might be a mismatch. So people think that online training is easy, but if you're doing it correctly, it's actually way harder than in person because you have to make assumptions on what they're doing, and you have to believe them and think that maybe hopefully the client's not lying to you, or they're not lying through omission. They just don't know that they should tell you this stuff. That can be a big thing with online training, which is why it makes it so very difficult, especially if you're not getting videos and you're not actually seeing what your clients are doing. Sometimes things get lost in translation. So when I'm writing out a program, I have a specific way I want the exercise done. And I put in a lot of exercise, a lot of notes in there of how I want them to do it. I'll put a video. I'll watch their video on the check-in. It looks nothing like what the video I sent them looks like, and it looks nothing like what I described it. So then I have to make another video, or I have to give further things, say, hey, you need to do this with your hands, this with your feet, do this, slow down, whatever. But yeah, online training can be very difficult when it's done correctly. So if you're paying $50 a month for a program, you're not getting coached. You're just getting a program that's being sent out for other people. People who actually do online training right, it's actually more expensive than what you normally see. No nutritional plan for this, so we're just going to focus on the programming. What are your thoughts on training program? Everything I do can be improved. That's also super important. It's really important to have a beginner's mindset. I'm 46, just turned 46 a couple of months, or last month. And I've been doing this for decades, and there's still stuff that I'm learning, still stuff that I'm creating. I still spend a lot of money on my continuing education. You can always improve things, right? So it's important to have that flexible mindset, beginner's mindset, and always seek to critique yourself and see if something you're doing could be done better. Okay, and LB designed this program. Okay, and again, this program, it seems like he's written this for his clients. So let's go into it. Looks like we have day 1 legs, day 2, we have chest, delts, and triceps. I love that split. Back and hamstrings, that's a great pairing. And then day 5, it looks like we have extra shoulders and some arms. All right. So the split, I like the split. Now, I will typically look at, for me, especially with beginners, using a lot of high frequency. Now, we don't know if this is for beginners, intermediate, advanced. I'm going to assume, because we're not using body part specialization, that this is going to be kind of beginner intermediate. So we'll just go on that. Okay. There is some carryover that I can see here because there's some leg presses on the back and hamstring day. So we got a little bit of frequency there. Okay, let's start with day 1 legs. Seated leg curl, 4 sets of 12 to 15. Okay, I actually love leg curls before a lower body day, especially if we're going to be doing some type of squat pattern. Squats, hack squats, leg press, front squats, overhead squats, anything. The reason I like that is because the hamstrings stabilize the knee. So getting a nice pump in the hamstrings can do wonders when you're squatting of keeping the femur and the tibia in the right position and not letting them separate too much. One thing you want to be careful of is doing too much work right before you squat. So I like this. I personally would probably, especially with a 12 to 15 rep range, I would probably just do like 2 sets. I probably wouldn't do that much volume because I don't want it to affect the theme of the workout. So the theme is legs, and because we already have a hamstring day later in the week. So when I say legs, I'm going to assume that this is going to be more of like a quad bias type of workout. One thing that I very rarely see in programs is people doing the same exercise twice in a workout. That is totally okay. Like there's not illegal to do that. They're not going to throw you in jail for it. So what I personally would do in this, I would probably just put like 2 seated leg curls up front just to get the hamstrings going. And then I might put another couple of seated leg curls later in the workout and make those, like the first exposure to that is just kind of like priming things up and getting the knees warm and stable. And then the 2 sets later in the workout would be, all right, just go crazy, like balls to the wall, leave nothing left, and just thrash yourself. Especially because we have a number of days between that day 1 legs and then the day 4 hamstring. So we've got, we got like 3 days of recovery. So we're going to be pretty good hammering them there. It's not going to, probably won't affect that hamstring workout later in the week. The next thing is a glute raise. Now, when I look at this, I'm trying to think. Again, like semantics matter and how we describe the exercise matters. There's no notes on this. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's like, is that a hip thrust? Is that a hip bridge? Is that a glute ham raise? I'm not quite sure, because glute raise to me could mean a dozen different types of things. I would say this, whatever that's going to be, whether it's a glute ham raise, whether that's going to be like a hip thrust, I would probably put that later in the workout because you have some leg presses and hack squats coming up after that. So if the main theme is going to be like hack squats and leg press, we need to put those earlier in the workout because the stuff that's going to be early in the workout is going to be fresh. You're not going to be fatigued. You're going to do a much better job on that stuff. So the first thing I would do, take the seated leg curls, cut those in half, and then put another couple of sets later in the workout if you want to. Then I would move the leg press and hack squat up and move the glute raise, whatever that is, later in the workout. I would probably actually put that last in the workout, especially considering we have RDLs there anyways. One of the problems, like the RDL, is it's not in a bad position here, but because you're having to stand on two legs and manage hinging and keeping everything together, if you thrash your hamstrings and thrash your glutes before you do the RDL, you're going to have a tough time, especially in thrash your quads. You're going to have a tough time getting anything out of that RDL because you're not going to be able to, if you're hammering this pretty hard, you're not going to be able to stand up very well. And you're not going to especially manage your weight distribution and keeping everything together. So what I do, move the glute raise to the end, move the leg press, the hack squat up, move the RDL up. The third thing that I would do on here is if you have hack squats and leg press, I would much prefer to do the squat first. So do the big closed chain movement, the big closed chain compound movement first, because that's the one that's going to have a much higher level of stimulus. It's also the one that, you're not really going to have anything go sideways on a hack squat if you do something's wrong. I mean, the machine, if you set the safety bars and you're paying attention, there's not a lot that can go wrong like in a back squat or a front squat. But because that has a lot more moving parts and requires more stability than the leg press, I would probably move that up. So seated leg curl, 2 sets, hack squat after that, then go to your leg press because the leg press is going to be a much easier exercise than the hack squat. You're much more stable, it's easier to control. Put that third, move the RDL up, and then put the glute raise at the end of the workout. And if you wanted to do some more leg curl, that would be a perfect time. You don't need a lot of concentration. There's no risk involved of putting leg curl at the end of the workout. So you could put 2 sets of leg curl at the end of the workout and you'd have a pretty solid training plan. The rep ranges, I like the rep ranges, especially for like earlier beginner and intermediate type clients, and especially works well with some of the machine work that we have going on here. All in all, it's pretty solid. I just feel like rearranging the exercises, splitting some things up might make this workout quite a bit better. Now going on to day 2, chest delts and triceps. So it looks like we have heavy delts here, and it doesn't say on day 5, but I'm assuming it's like medium and light delts there because there wouldn't really be a reason to put heavy on there if that wasn't kind of the theme of things. We have machine laterals, 5 sets of 10 to 15 with 45 seconds of rest. Shoulders will feel good for pressing after. Look, not a bad idea to pre-fatigue there. However, it's the same conversation with the seated leg curls. If you are doing that much and fatiguing the shoulders that much early in the workout, everything that comes after it is going to be a bit difficult. And we have dips in here, right? So that being said, dips should probably be higher in the order. And again, like we said on the leg curl, you could take those machine laterals. You could do 2 sets of that just to get a nice little pump going, but without causing excessive fatigue. And then put 3 sets or 2 sets of machine laterals at the end of the workout where you can now hammer it on for actual tension and stimulus for growth. I would go, you've got incline dumbbell press, machine press dips. Great pairing. However, I would reorganize this, move the dips second, then go to the incline dumbbell press, then go to the machine press. One thing I like about this is that you are doing presses from multiple angles, which for me is really important for shoulder health, right? So instead of just focusing on machine press and just pressing out, we have one where we're pressing in a downward angle position for the shoulders and one where we're pushing from an upward angle from the shoulder. So that's good. That's good. It's good for development, but it's also good because the shoulders, because they're so complex and they have so much range of motion, they need to be strengthened in multiple positions. So I like that you're doing that. So let's go machine laterals 2, dips first, then move to incline dumbbell press, These are done on a higher than normal incline. For me, I like to be really specific. So instead of going do these higher than a normal incline, what's a normal incline? Are we saying a 45 is normal, or 30 is normal, or 15 is normal? Is 60 normal? I'm assuming you want them to do it on like a 60 or 70 degree incline. I would actually put that on the paper so that they're doing specifically exactly what I want them to do, because clients, their interpretation of what we want could be massively different than what we're thinking, and that is going to make small differences in their results. So if we're doing the dips, so we're coming this direction, we're pressing down, we go to the incline. I like that you're doing a high incline, but I would put that like 60 degrees, 70 degrees, because at that level, we're still getting a tiny bit of like clavicular pec. We're mainly getting into anterior delt, but that's good. That's good. So those three positions, amazing. Let's just reorganize that. Overhead dumbbell press. Now, there's quite a bit of overlap there with your incline dumbbell press. If you're already doing 60, 70 degrees, do you actually need to do something straight up and down? What I would probably do personally is I'd probably remove those and just add those 3 sets to the other pressing movements, because we could streamline that in and have 3 exercises instead of 4, where 2 of those exercises have a lot of carryover. And it depends, again, like you've got some great notes on these, but to me, it's just, there needs to be a bit more detail in how that's done. Like overhead dumbbell press, is that from a neutral position? Is that from a pronated position? Is that from neutral to pronated? So be more specific on what you're actually looking for, because you're going to have some clients, if you give them like a traditional pronated dumbbell press, they might not have the orthopedic profile to do that, and they may be getting impinged, and it might not be a big deal right now. They're like, oh, it just hurts a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm not even going to tell JB. But then you get a few months later, and all of a sudden they've got a shoulder impingement because they were pressing in a position that they weren't qualified to be in. So be really specific on how you want that. For what we do at Muscle Nerds, I like moving from a position of neutral grip and more kind of scapular plane, and then unlocking that as a progression, going from front to back, even going to behind the neck presses, if we get somebody qualified to do that. And then you've got machine cable lateral. So you have a bit of overlap there with machine laterals too. So I don't not like it, but I think that it's kind of like whipping a dead horse. So you've already got overhead press, you got high incline press, you've got machine laterals, 5 sets of those, and you got 3 sets of machine cable lateral. I don't think you actually need that. I personally would put something in that's going to directly work on the rotator cuff. So maybe work on external rotation, maybe lower trap raise, maybe even like something I don't see here is like even reverse fly. So maybe like a prone 30 or 45 degree reverse fly. So we can now hit the back of the shoulders, and that's where you're going to see a lot of people that are deficient. A lot of the pressing and pulling, a lot of people are going to have really good anterior delt and possibly even good lateral delt. Where you're not going to see good development on most people is going to be rear delt. So I would actually take that machine cable lateral and do a bent cable lateral, or something that's more stabilized like an incline bench machine cable lateral, or an incline bench reverse fly, something like that. And then I think that would be a fairly solid workout. Now on day 4, back and hamstrings, lat pull down, 1-arm dumbbell row T-bar, deadlifts, lying leg curl, leg press. Okay. I don't really know why the leg press is in there, because it doesn't really go along with the theme unless you're modulating your foot position to try to hit more hip, like try to hit more of your glutes and hamstrings. So if you're doing something like a narrow grip, like partial range leg press, I would probably pull that out and use something else. I mean, if we've got lying leg curl, you've got knee flexion there. If you want more hip extension, you want to hit more of like the proximal location of the hamstrings, you could put a lot of different stuff. You could put back extensions there. You could put, let's see, what would I do there? Instead of the leg press, man, you already have deadlifts in there too. I do like deadlifts if it's a back and hamstring day, nothing wrong with that. I probably would move that forward though. Again, you've got this big movement that a lot of people have trouble with anyways, especially under fatigue. So let's just go on that line. So let's go deadlifts, I put that up front. I put that as the first exercise. Then I look at things that are going to be, heavier stuff that need more concentration and more moving parts, and stuff that might be a little more unstable, like one-arm dumbbell rows. I'd probably go deadlift, one-arm dumbbell row, then possibly put lat pull down or T-bar row. This could be a wild card. You could go lat pull down or T-bar row. Now, with that, old school Ronnie Coleman style, generally have a landmine you can use. Let me think. Maybe even putting the T-bar row up front, because you're going to be able to use a massive amount of weight in that compared to the one-arm dumbbell row. So maybe go deadlift, T-bar row, lat pull down, dumbbell row might be good. Like, you could go a million different ways of this, and no real right or wrong way of doing it, but I would definitely put the deadlifts up front. And then if you're going to finish off on some more hamstring, I say we get rid of the leg press and do some type of hip extension. So reverse hyper or a back extension, something like that, or even do another round of RDLs. In fact, those RDLs might actually, from day one, might actually be better on day 4, and then moving the back extension to day 1, because you've got a pretty good amount of work with big boy stuff on day 4. Okay, and that would be fairly solid. Now, day 5, seated dumbbell overhead press, dumbbell super lateral raise. Okay, bring the weight above your head and bring them down very controlled. So these are Lou raises, right? So this is more of a weightlifting specific exercise for preparing your shoulders for the snatch. I actually like them for bodybuilding too. A lot of people will say, oh, just bring the arms up under the shoulders because you get too much trap involvement. Your traps are going to be involved in a lateral raise anyways. If your traps aren't involved in a lateral raise, they're not going to pull the clavicle and the acromion out of the way. So if you keep your shoulders down and you just focus on lifting your humerus, you're going to end up impinging the shoulder. So it's much better to allow your traps to lift this up, because that's fairly normal. That's normal human movement. But the Lou raises, anything, and this is going to go way opposite of what most people are going to say. They're going to say, like, rotational stuff for the shoulders, don't build hypertrophy. They're going to say Lou raises don't, because you lose some of the stimulus, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I've seen. I've used shoulder dislocates with bodybuilders. I've used Lou raises, and especially things that are rotational, like the dislocates. I've seen people get really nice full delts while also keeping the shoulders really healthy just by doing rotational stuff. So doing things like full dislocates, doing things at weighted dislocates, right? So being able to get in the dislocate first, using something like a dowel rod, then sliding a weight in the middle so you can start slowly loading that up. And in fact, one time, many years ago, I was talking to Coach Christopher Sommer at Gymnastic Bodies, and he was telling us a story that one of his kids that he had trained since they were a little kid up until he went off to college, this is a national level gymnast, he had always told his guys to always do dislocates and always load them, and if you can load them more, go ahead and do it. And so his athlete had gone off to college, he hadn't seen him for a while, he came back and his shoulders were massive, and he goes, oh, have you gotten into bodybuilding while you've been at college? He goes, no, I just kept doing dislocates. He goes, well, how much are you using? And he was using something like, I think 60 kilos for reps on dislocates, and his shoulders were absolutely massive. When Chris told me that, I went home and immediately all my physique girls started doing dislocates, and I saw the same thing. Their shoulders blew up, and there were no weak spots in their shoulders. So a lot of the times when we use isolation work, you can end up getting like divots in the shoulder and areas that aren't stimulated. The shoulders have so much complexity and range of motion and need for tension in a lot of different angles. It just makes sense. So a lot of people told me, oh, those dislocates don't do anything. They don't build hypertrophy. I try stuff. I never throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm like, okay, everybody says it doesn't work. I'm just going to try it, see what happens. And all I saw was massive benefits from it. So I kept it in. So with the Lou raises, I see the same thing. You don't need much weight at all for them. They tend to give you plenty of stimulus, especially with higher reps. I like that. Dumbbell 6-ways. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this. So if you don't know what a dumbbell 6-way is, you do a lateral raise, you bring it to the front, you drop it down the front raise, you bring it up, bring it out, bring it down. That is a John Meadows special. So I think instead of doing the dumbbell 6 ways, one thing that I like to do is just do lateral raises from a few different positions. So start with side lateral raise, then move to 45 degree, and then move to front raise. That way you're hitting the delts from 3 different angles. And you could also go lateral raise, 45, front raise, and then bend over and do a reverse fly. So that way, again, like a lot of people, their problem is posterior delt. Like I've never seen anybody that had underdeveloped anterior delt. You do see people that might have a little bit underdeveloped lateral delt, but you have plenty of stuff to address that. We probably need a bit more rear delt and also a bit more like upper back, like isolated upper back. You've got upper back like the T-bar rows, the dumbbell rows, depending on how you do it, but it might be good to have a bit more like reverse fly type stuff. Machine cable curl, great. Triceps press down, that's fine, totally fine. Incline dumbbell curl, totally fine. And then a jam press. So on a previous video, I talked about the jam press. It's more of a powerlifting specific exercise. And on that video, it was a Smith JM press, which I'm gonna have to try because I've never actually tried that. So I need to try that and I'll give you guys my opinion on it. But it seems fine. I'm probably gonna love it. But what I would say is, if you're going to do a JM press for bodybuilding, that should not go at the end because there's a lot of moving parts to that. So like we said with some of the stuff, just the order of exercise are a little bit wonky on this one. That dumbbell, that if you got a triceps press down, that's going to prevent you from doing like it's going to fatigue you from being able to use a lot of weight on the jam press. Now, if pre-exhausting that is what your goal is, disregard what I'm saying here. But what I would rather do is put the jam press where the triceps press down is, move the triceps press down to the end. And I would probably also just do the incline dumbbell curl with the jam press because you could do that at the same station. So you wouldn't have to like run around or whatever, especially if you're going to superset some stuff, which I would highly advise you doing when you're doing antagonistic pairings because it's going to save time and it's going to allow you to have more rest between sets. And then having the machine cable curl and the triceps press down, since those are both at the same station, then you could just, if you're doing cable curl and triceps press down, you could just do that on the same stack and just stay at the same position and not be the guy that's like commandeering tons of equipment and having to walk all over the workout and like you're getting cardio while you're trying to do weightlifting. Okay, so let's go. I like seated overhead press. I like that up front. I like the JM press, move that up front. The super lateral raises and the 6 ways, you might even put those at the end of the workout. And the reason is because if we do a seated overhead press and then we do like, let's say, roll right into the lateral raises, that overhead press is going to cause a level of fatigue where you're probably not going to get as much on the lateral raises as you want. So we could give those some rest while we work the arms and then throw in that super isolated delt work at the end of the workout. So maybe go overhead press, then go JM press with incline dumbbell curl, and I would superset those. Then go to machine or cable curl with the triceps press down. I would superset those. And then I'd put the Lou raises, the super laterals at the end. And then maybe do the dumbbell 6 ways, or like I recommended, maybe we do a dumbbell 4 way where we go lateral raise, 45, front, and then reverse fly. And I think that'd be a solid workout, and you wouldn't have big movements that were preventing other movements from being able to be done really well, right? So like none of this arm work is going to affect the lateral raise or the 6 ways, but the overhead press will. Right now, if you're trying to build fatigue, totally fine. But I would be focusing a lot more on tension and trying to get the best performance that I could out of each set. Yeah, and I think that's pretty good. Look, I like it. I like it. I like the choices. I just think some better structure, more organized structure of where things go and order of exercises will be a lot better. Now, if we think like you have different levels of order of exercise or different levels of exercise. So if we look at the base bottom level, all of your machine work, that is going to be basically your lowest level stuff. So with that, you can concentrate more on the muscle that you're trying to work. You can do those under fatigue. It's not really going to affect anything. You don't have to worry so much about stability or things going sideways. Like you're not going to get hurt doing like a machine triceps extension. So that type of stuff, unless you're using it as a pre-fatigue, those work really well as later in the workout choices. And if we go earlier in the workout and we move up these levels of exercise complexity and fatigue and all that, we start moving up to things like cables. So those cables usually fit somewhere in the middle. And then as we move up, we move to like those higher level stuff like barbell, dumbbell, multi-compound exercises. And then like the highest level would be more like gymnastics type work, snatch, clean, like super technical lifts, which you don't have in here, so we don't have to worry about that. But I think it's almost always, again, there are reasons why you would go away from this, but I think if you look at your exercise choices and where you order them in a workout, it's always a good idea to go, okay, let's do the heaviest, most technical, most dangerous, most risky exercises first when we're not fatigued. And then we move to the next level of, okay, what is the next exercise that can't be done as heavy, might be a little more stable, has a bit less moving parts. And then at the end of the workout, go to your really super stable positions where it's basically like the caveman of exercise. It's like a Scott curl on a machine, or an incline machine dumbbell curl, or a machine triceps press, or a machine bench press. Those types of things tend to come later in the workout. If you are doing a lot of different body parts, like a chest, delts, triceps, then you can reorganize this of saying, okay, I'm going to section this out to like first chest, then delts, then triceps, and then use the same kind of format of going, okay, bench press, or let's say like in this instance, we're going to do like, let's say we have dips, a bench press, and then a machine press. Dips are going to be your longest range of motion, more moving parts, less stability. So dips up front, then bench press, because you've got more stability. And then you go to even more stability of doing something like, say, a machine press. So that would be a really good, just basic guideline of when you're setting up a workout. So think heavy, technical, dangerous, lots of moving parts, compound stuff first, and then you taper off to more stable, less risky, basically easy to concentrate because you don't have to focus on stability and balance and all that type of stuff, and you just taper down to that. And if you follow that guideline for most of your workouts, you're gonna always write good workouts. And then if you want to alter that, always have a specific reason of why you're gonna move some things around. Like maybe we do want to pre-fatigue something for someone who is a more advanced athlete and can do the big compound stuff under fatigue, and we don't have to worry about them hurting themselves. So there's less risk the more advanced you get. Yeah, so I think that would be pretty solid. So JB, let me know what you think about this, and then maybe try with a couple of clients, reorganize, see, and ask their perception of it, and see like how did that feel versus the first one I gave you, and then get their feedback. Well, yeah, you might get feedback like, yeah, actually when I got to the jam press, man, I was so gassed I couldn't do anything. I was barely lifting the bar. Like, okay, what happened when you did it the other way? Oh man, I could do the jam press with the bar plus 45s because my triceps weren't completely smoked. So the best way to figure this out is reorganize exactly what you've done here, give it to your clients for that second phase, and then get their feedback of which one they preferred and which one they felt like they got better results on, and which one they could inherently use more total tonnage through the workout. And I think so guys, if you're enjoying these, we've gotten some really good feedback from it. If you want your program to be critiqued, send them in, and like the other ones, there's not going to be any bashing. It's just going to go like, hey, what do I like? Okay, what could be better? All right, and that's the whole point of this is, what can we do to give you guys more clarity on how to get more out of your workouts with just super easy hacks and moving some stuff around. So there's going to be a link at the bottom. If you're enjoying this, you want me to check it over, then send it in. Happy to do it.